violence against women, as you know, violence in general is a very serious issue, and there are lots of ways to approach it. But to do something about it, and you've probably all know more than I do about this, we need good ways of analyzing its nature, its roots, and its distributions. And there are a lot of experts here at this conference, but I wanted to offer just one humble suggestion that might be surprising coming from an anthropologist, which is let's not talk about culture. I think culture acts as a screen to camouflage the more pressing and fundamental structures of violence affecting women in those parts of the world where we tend to blame culture. And I'll talk about this, how this applies in both war zones and to peaceful countries in the region. So here's the problem. Even though violence occurs in almost all communities, why, when we talk about cultures of violence, are we only talking about distant places? And as Letty Volpe, a law professor at Berkeley a long time ago, pointed out, one could easily talk about a frightening culture of violence in the US, where guns and knives are ubiquitous, where statistics prove that domestic violence occurs across class, race, and ethnicity, where every day the tabloid news, I think might not be called tabloids in America, but gives us horrific stories of sex workers cut up into pieces, young women abducted and imprisoned in basements bearing the children of their rapists, incest, and so forth. But we never blame American culture or Judeo-Christian culture for these kinds of violence. We blame individuals, psychopaths, sometimes poverty, and some feminists do suggest that there's a culture of patriarchy that's to blame for this. But even they tend to presume, as Susan Moeller-Oken, the political theorist who wrote the famous article called "Is Multiculturalism Bad for Women?" They presume that we Americans or Europeans have progressed further in undoing this patriarchal culture. The cultural forms of violence against women are always associated with an elsewhere. So I think cultural arguments are actually dangerous, a dangerous way to go, and I think we have to be vigilant against them, and that's what I spend my time doing, because I think they're distributed unequally in the world as explanations for what we're seeing. And if I had to think of one culture to blame for the violence affecting women in the parts of the world we're talking about here in this panel, it would be that of armed conflict and militarism, which I know you've talked about in this conference, exemplified by invasions and occupations, like the US of Afghanistan and Iraq, and of Israel to Palestine. We don't normally call militarism culture or tradition. We don't relate it to Judaism or Christianity or Protestantism or whatever, though in these cases one could say that, but we don't. We call it politics, and we see that it's connected to economics and other things. And here's where I think we can intervene and we should intervene if we want to do something about serious violence against Muslim women.